Hello, this is Cheryl Lampard. I hope you can hear me. Gosh, I'm so sorry we've come in late, but I had some technical difficulties both getting online and with the software. All should be well now, so I just want to check that I can be seen and heard. Just let me look on my phone to make sure that's streaming. Let's hope so. Otherwise I'm talking into Facebook land and nobody's watching. Let's see. I'm there. Okay, great. Okay, off we go. Whew. Well, welcome to Knitter Matters. This is season 3, episode 17. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're watching live or the replays later. I'm very pleased that you're here. Thank you. I'm Cheryl Lampard. I'm a fibre artist. I'm a knitting educator. I'm a Craft Yarn Council certified instructor. I used to be a yarn store owner many moons ago in Brighton, England, and I loved teaching then, and I love teaching knitting now, perhaps even more so these days. So we're rapidly approaching the holidays, and I thought it was time to make some festive baubles. Now, we've done festive knitting before in Knitter Matters, and in season 1, episode 36, I did this holly and berries festive wreath. It's hard to say, with knitted holly and knitted berries and some little stockings at the bottom. And pine cones, in fact, knitted pine cones there. But I haven't really done a bauble. Let me switch to the worktop. Okay, so many years ago, I made this little knitted bauble. I knitted it in the round with DPNs, and I stuffed it with polyester filling, the stuff that you use for stuffed dolls and crafts. But I didn't really like how much time I spent in trying to get the float tension right. The white yarn that I used was a little bit thin, and I just wasn't particularly happy with the result. After all that work, it seemed an awful lot of bother for a fairly mediocre result. So I never bothered to do it again. But it did irk me because there's so many nice little baubles out there, and I think they make wonderful little gifts, or you know, they look so cute on a tree. So I thought I dug it out again, and I started to experiment a bit. And I figured that it might work better with a firmer insert rather than toy filling. So I tried with these polystyrene or polyfoam balls. I think these are the size of these is 2.8 inches. And of course you can't knit that circularly and then get the ball in afterwards. I mean, this was knitted, and once you finish it, you stuff it with the filling. But of course, with something, you know, solid, as it were, you can't do that once the top gets smaller. So I even tried knitting around it with double-pointed needles. And when I say double-pointed needles, of course, you can do the magic loop if you prefer. But I tried knitting around it, and it worked to a degree, and it helped with evening out the floats, because that's actually tricky. The problem is when you're knitting this on DPNs or with magic loop method on a circular needle, you've got to really make sure the floats don't get tight. And I made my first attempt here. I actually made my floats so loose that, you know, the stitches were a bit, they weren't very nice. Or the other thing is, if your floats are too tight, then it's going to pucker the thing up. So it's a bit tricky when you're working in a small space, when you get to this point, to keep them really nice and evened out. So, as I say, I tried knitting round the ball. It worked to a degree, and it certainly helped the floats, but it was actually more effort than it was worth. So I was determined to find a solution, and I think I've come up with it. And this is the result. This is my bauble, which I have done with 2 needles, knitting flat, yeah, 2 needles, knitted it flat, backwards and forwards. And I was going to try and get the pattern typed up for you and post that today on the page, but I will do that for the end of the week. I didn't have time today, but I will get that posted up by the end of the week. But you can apply this method really, it doesn't have to be my pattern. You can use this with any, well, virtually any little bauble pattern that's knitted in the round. So I was determined to find a solution for the people that don't really like knitting on DPNs or using magic loop to make these little things. If you're happy with doing that, then please carry on. I just wanted to find an alternative option for knitters who prefer not to knit in the round, or maybe don't have a set of DPNs of the right size or the right length circular to hand. You know, if you've got 2 needles, you can do it this way. And I do encourage you to try it with other patterns. One thing I would say, if you're making a bauble for a child or it's to be used as a toy, it needs to be washable. It needs to be safe and washable. So I would recommend in that instance that you do use the polyfills or toy stuffing that's made for, that can be washed and is suitable for children. But if you're simply using this as an ornament, then you might like to try it with the I keep wanting to say polyball. I mean, we call it polystyrene in the UK. I think we call it polyfoam in the US, but you know what I mean. It's one of those. Anyway, so for my baubles, I actually used a 4.5mm US needle. I have got one here that I'm going to come back to in a minute that I have finished, and I will show you the finishing in a second. But as you can see, I have knitted this completely flat. I've used a 4.5mm US 7 size needle and number 4 weight worsted yarn. This white yarn, I don't think you can see, it has a little bit of sparkle here, which I thought was suitably festive. And what I did here was cast on 14 stitches. I need 12 for this particular pattern. I need 12. But I need to make an edge stitch, and that's really the big difference. So if you're adapting another pattern, you can look at the total number of stitches and see how that works out. And then if you want to knit it flat, just add a selvage stitch at each end of the needle. Now, you don't need to do a fancy selvage stitch. I did try it with a knit stitch at each end of both knit rows and purl rows. I actually didn't like sewing that up so much. So here I've just left it as a stockinette stitch. So it's a knit stitch at each end of the knit rows and a purl stitch at each end of the purl rows. What else do I need to tell you about this weight of yarn? You may have to, this is a fairly thickish, I know that sounds odd, it's a number 4 weight, medium weight yarn. It is a worsted yarn, but the recommendation on the ball band only, says that you can knit with a 5 or a 5.5mm needle. I found for my tension that the 4.5mm needle, the US 7, was just right and fitted the ball, that size ball, well. You may have to play about with that. If you use a slightly finer yarn, you'll have to perhaps do more stitches. It really depends what pattern you're using and how you wish to adapt it. But I really just used a pattern that I'd found years ago that was knitted in the round, and then I adapted it, finishing in the flat. So let me show you what I did, and I'll come back to this one in a second. So to start off with, and I'm going to show you using red yarn because I think it's a bit clearer here. So all I did here was to cast on my 14 stitches. Remember, I need 12 to make my bauble, plus a selvage stitch at each end. My first row, I have done that. So I cast on my 14 stitches, and then my first row was actually a purl row. And while I was doing that purl row, I added the my stitch markers. So I should have 3, not including my stitch markers, separating each stitch marker, and I should have 4 sort of sections, if you will. So that's my first, that's my edge stitch, there's my 3, there's my marker 3, marker 3, marker 3, then my next edge stitch. So I'm just going to show you how I did this, and then I won't go through every single row, but I just want to show you, because if you do use this pattern once I've posted it, then it'll help you. So my next row is going to be a right side row, and I have my 4 sections, if you will. So I knit my edge stitch. Now I'm going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm right up to my marker. Now we start the increases. On this row, I knit 3 and then I do a make 1 right. Now if you've never done a make 1 right before, or you can't remember how to do it, when you make 1, you're increasing a stitch, but you're picking that bar up between the stitch that's on the right hand needle and the one that's on the left. Now when you do a make 1, you can either just scoop it up with that needle. Sorry, it's a make 1 right. So I can lift it up like that. Then I need to put it back on that needle because I have to knit into the front of it like that. Okay, so I've made 1 right. Now I slip the marker, I knit 3, and I'm going to do another make 1 right, and that means it's going to sort of lean to the right. So I can slip it on that. I slip it that way, so I'm sort of picking it up from the back, putting it on the needle, and then I knit. It's the awkward one. You knit into the front of it, but you've got to get your needle round. Slip the marker, knit 3. I'm only making 1 increase in each section on this row. Make 1 right, pick it up, put it back on my left needle because I want to be able to get my right hand needle in the front. Knit that, slip the marker, knit, knit. Now I mustn't forget to do my last make 1 right, and this time there's no marker, but it's my edge stitch. So picking that up, slipping it on my left needle and knitting that, and now I knit my edge stitch. I'm just going to whiz back. This is just a complete purl row, no increases or any other shaping on this row. This is just a pure purl row. Now if you were knitting this in the round, obviously it would just be knit all the way through, so you wouldn't have to worry about purl rows. But that's the one thing about knitting in the round. If you hate purling, then circular knitting is for you. I do like knitting in the round, and actually I don't dislike DPNs as much as I used to. I do like circular needles better, but I don't dislike DPNs as much as I used to. But I did find it such a lot of effort for a not great result, and I thought there must be other people like me out there. So I like to come up with a solution where I can, or an option, shall we say. Options are good. Right, so I've done my purl row, so I'm now doing my next row, and we're going to make 2 increases in each little section now. And I'm just going to show you this row, just in case you don't remember how to do the make 1 left. So remember, I've got a knit stitch here. Now I've got a make 1 left. I think the make 1 left is always a bit easier because you pick it up and you knit into the back of it. Okay, I just find that more naturally easy. Then you're going to knit 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to, oh yes, sorry, you're going to, oh, you know what I did there? I did that wrong. Sorry, I'm going to go back because I did forget. This is purely my edge stitch. I need to do a make 1. I need to knit 1 first there. Then I need to do my left leaning decrease. So I knit into the back of it. You almost have to sort of forget that your edge stitch is there because you need to knit a stitch, then do the make 1. Now I'm going to knit 3. Now I'm going to do my right leaning increase. This is the one that I've got to put it on my left needle and sort of move my needle around to knit into the front of it. I'm going to knit 1. I'm going to do a left leaning increase. So I put that on my needle and knit into the back. Knit 3. It's sort of odd because we do a knit 1 there, then we make the left leaning increase, but when we do the right leaning increase, we knit right up to the stitch marker. Okay, whoops, got that around the wrong way. See what I mean? It's instinctive to put it on the needle one way. That's why I find the left leaning increase easier. That was a make one right. So knit one, going to do a make one left. This is where you knit into the back. Knit, knit, knit. Pick up my bar between the two stitches, put it on that needle, knit from the front to the back, and then lastly knit one. Now I'm going to do my left leaning. It's always instinctive for me to put it that way on. This is the one you knit into the back, and remember I have a knit stitch there, so my last make one is a make one right, and I do it before the end stitch. Okay, so that's how to do the make one rights and the make one left. And you can see that, I hope you can see that. Let me lift that up a bit so you can see that. Hopefully you can see that. You can see that leans, that increase. I love make one increases. They're really subtle, but you can see that's going towards the right, that's going towards the left. And as you do more of those, you'll see them quite clearly. So that's your make one right, goes that way. Make one left, going that way. So you would continue in that way for this particular pattern. The next row would be a purl row, and we do on this, all the shaping is done on right side rows. Wrong side rows are purl rows. Don't forget that edge stitch. So I would continue to make the increases on my pattern until I get to row 12, when I bring in a contrast colour. There's 8 rows of pattern, there's 8 rows of design, if you will, and those are knit and purl rows in the pattern, but no increases or decreases. It's just 8 straight rows, and it's only when we get to row 20 that we start the decreases. Decreases are using knit 2 together and SSK. I'm sure you know what. Let me just go back a bit and I'll show you on here, just in case you haven't done. I'm sure you've done a knit 2 together, but an SSK. Let me just show you what that is. I'll unpick a few stitches here. Just bear with me so you can see what they are. Okay. Okay. So obviously a knit 2 together is literally that. Knitting 2 together. Okay. And SSK is slip, slip, and then put them on the back on that left needle, and then knit like that. Then it's not the same as knitting of we went through this before, I know. It's a left leaning decrease. A knit 2 together is a right leaning decrease. A slip slip knit is a left leaning decrease, and it isn't the same as just what you can't do and what you shouldn't do, and I know people do this but don't. There's no point in just thinking, oh okay, why am I doing the slip slip, I'll just knit into the back of the loops. It's not the same stitch. Slip slip knit. And the reason it's not the same stitch is that you seated the stitches differently because you want them to lean to the left. Okay, right, let's get on with our bauble. So you would continue decreasing then until there are 14 stitches left on your needle. So you're going back to where you started almost. And I'll show you on the white one, which actually, now that I'm looking through the camera, was not a great choice because you cannot see the stitches too well. That was not clever. Anyway, I'll carry on with this, and when I sew this up, I'm going to do it in red thread so that you will be able to see. So we have 14 stitches. What I want to do now is what I should have said: when you cast on, you want to leave a long tail, at least 15 inches or so. That's because you can use that to sew up your bauble. When you get to finish off this part at the top, you also want to leave a thread, a long tail, about 15 to 18 inches again. And I'm going to show you what to do with this, because you're going to use this to crochet your hanging chain. So now I've got my 14 stitches left on my needle. So now I'm going to take them off the needle, running my tapestry needle through all the stitches and dropping the stitch markers as I go along. Okay, dropping the stitch marker, dropping the stitch marker. And this is really simple. I just want to show you how we finish off our bauble. So I did this one earlier, as I said, white wasn't perhaps the right choice here. So all you do is pull that right up, you gather that right up. You can go round again if you want to. You don't have to, there's no real value in doing that, but if it makes you feel happier, you can just scootle around again. I'm not going to do, oh yeah I am. I'm going to do that and pull that up a bit. Okay. Because then I can sort of let go of that. I'm going to come back to that. That's at the top of my bauble. Okay. Right. Now, so I've got the bottom. I've done the same thing to the bottom. I just did that earlier on. Exactly the same thing. I gathered that up, pulled that nice and tight. Now I'm going to get my poly ball, and you can see here I've managed to keep my floats in much better shape. I've managed to keep my floats in much better shape. It's, you know, some people are just brilliantly natural. They keep the floats really nice and equal when they're going around, no matter how small the work is. I find it a struggle when it's a piece that I can't see. But every knitter is different. So I'm now going to pop my poly ball in here. This is sort of the recycled plastic, so it's a little bit kind of crunchy. It's like treading on snow in your boots. Okay, there you see, that has fitted nicely. The nice thing is you don't have to worry about finishing off the ends or working them in. So you can see my ball is going to fit really nicely there. Now normally I would use the white yarn to sew up, but I want to show you so that you can see it. I'm going to show you in red. I'm just going to do a few stitches and then I'll show you how to do the hanging part at the end. So just bear with me. Imagine that this is my sewing up yarn. So what I'm going to do, I'll just leave that hanging. I'm looking for where my stitch is, that edge stitch that I did on both sides. I'm not going to over sew it. I'm sort of doing a mattress stitch. So I want to find, remember that we did a increase right before that stitch. So I want to find that sort of small bit where I've got sort of rungs of my ladder, as it were, between that first stitch and where my make one increase might be. And then I'm going to go back to the other side and go this way. This is going to show when I pull it up a bit, whereas obviously if I was doing it the same colour as my yarn, it wouldn't. So now I'm going back to this side. I'm looking for, this is my edge stitch. I'm looking for where my stitch is there, the next one in, as it were. I'm going to go back to the other side. I'm not going to go in that one, I'm going to go in this one. Okay. I feel like I'm sewing up a baseball. Back to this side, that I'm pulling my edge stitch away, finding that bar between it, going up there. And this is a time where if you find your one side, sometimes about knitting, one side is a little bit looser than the other. This is where you can sort of tighten it up. You might have to miss a stitch on one side or the other, but you can do wonderful things by just sort of skipping a row and you know, pulling your yarn up. So here, I'm going here, where that bar is there. Let's see what's happening here. Now I'm going to sort of pull both ends there. There we go. Now obviously if this was white thread, this would disappear completely, but I just wanted you to see what I was doing. This side, get back again to this side. I'm trying to find that bar. There we go. I'll just do a couple more and then I'll show you how to finish it off. Back to my left side, find that bar. I'm calling it a bar. I'm not looking for the bar increase. I'm looking for the bar, that horizontal bar that runs from the first stitch between that and the next stitch, and likewise here. It's trickier on this side because our make one was right up against the edge stitch, but you can still find it. And no, you don't have to worry about what the wrong side's going to look like because nobody's going to see it. Okay, and so on and so on. So that's how I would sew up my bauble. And I do that right to the top. Now you want to make a hanger. So what I will do, I'm going to switch baubles so that you can see on the red how I would crochet my hanger. So what you need, ideally a crochet hook. This one is a size, I think it's a size D3. But you use a hook that's sort of fits the yarn that you've been using. So here I'm going to use, this is why we have the long tails when we finish off, so that we can use this as our hanger. Right, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to actually, you can sort of, you just want to start where you're trying to find, there we go. You start where you've finished off, as it were, where you've tightened up your little ring of stitches. Get that out of the way. Now I'm going to do, first few are always hardest. So I'm going to just do maybe however long you want your hanging. If I didn't split the yarn, it would be better. Sorry. All fingers and thumbs tonight. Okay. Oh, split it again. Sorry, I can't. I'm trying to hold it so you can see, and then I can't see what I'm doing. Hang on. Let me get this right around my finger better. Okay. So all I'm doing is making a crochet chain. You can do a fancy stitch if you want. You could almost knit. You could, if you haven't got a crochet hook, you can actually do this with a knitting needle or a cable needle. You know, it's a bit more fiddly, but it can be done. You don't have to rush out by a crochet hook. Or you can use one of those little things that you've got with a hook on the end for picking up stitches. And some DPNs do have a little piece on the end that you could use, but it can be done. I've done it with a cocktail stick before now. It's doable because all you're doing is a chain, and you can do however many you like. You don't want them too loose. Oh, running out of yarn, so yeah, that's probably about right now. But how do I want my hanger? Okay, so let's say that's the end of my bauble hanging chain. So all I'm going to do is go in this side now. Finish off with a pull that through. Oh, fiddly, fiddly, fiddly bit. I'm going to do that again. Sorry, made a mess of that. Sorry, I'm just pulling it near me so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, now I can see what I'm doing. Pulling that through my stitch. There we go. And pull my yarn through. And then I can just weave that end in. So now you have your hanging bauble. Okay, I'm going to go back to full screen. So it's up to you. this is the softer one, the squishy one. Recommend that certainly for children's toys. I wouldn't give them the polystyrene ball. If you like the bauble to be softer, then you can still do the method that we used and stuff it. There's no reason that you can't do that. But if you like your bauble to be a little sort of firmer and a bit rounder and stay that way, then that's the way you can do it with the polystyrene ball. And this one that's half finished. So the nice thing is you can change, remember I said there was 8 pattern rows. You can change those pattern rows. They don't have to, remember they don't have any increases or decreases. So you can have 8 stockinette rows or more. If your pattern that you're adapting has more, you can do what you like with them. Maybe you can put somebody's initials. You can do one motive and turn it upside down, as I did with this one. You know, there's hearts, upside down hearts. The right, what is the right way up for a heart? Anyway, but you know what I mean. So you could do that with trees. You could do it with a little snowflake. You don't even have to change the color. You could do a different stitch if you want. Maybe somebody's initials. That would be lovely. A very personalized little gift then. And the project is a great way of practicing different stitches and different techniques or color work, whatever you want. You know, it's small enough that if it doesn't work, it's not hours of knitting to be despondent about. And if you like what you've done, you've got a holiday ornament that you can use. One of the nice things about these baubles is that you can use them as wrapping trim. Especially if you've done the person's initials, it's a personalized gift tag almost that they can keep, and it'll always remind them of you, the knitter, and that in itself is a gift. So I do hope you enjoyed these knitted ornaments. I will get the pattern typed up and by the end of the week and put it on the Knitter Matters Facebook page if you do want to use that. Otherwise, remember, just have a look at any pattern. Don't let a pattern, because it's knit in the round, put you off for these baubles. See how you can adapt, and it really is that simple. So hope you found it fun. Thank you so much for watching and for your patience. Feel free to email or message me if you have any questions. This episode and all others are uploaded to the Knitter Matters Facebook page and our YouTube channel of the same name. The replays are available at any time, and if you're searching for this episode, it'll be named Season 3, Episode 17. One thing I should mention, sometimes when this first goes on the Knitter Matters page, sometimes it comes up with a previous episode. I don't know quite why that is. It's something that the software switching seems to do. But once I get to it and post it, I change the number. So this will be Season 3, Episode 17. And do please keep well until next time. Please keep well, keep calm, and keep knitting. Bye for now.